corporation that you're used to, where the president runs everything and they're the ones that are left with the control, and the board of directors in these corporations, that run businesses have nothing to do with the business. They leave it all to the president. Not so when it comes to HOA and condos. Those roles are totally different. Everything that's decided has to be, unless it's a minor day-to-day thing, has to be decided by at least the board. If not, you're right, sometimes your documents say it has to be done by the members. But yeah, he needs to understand that it is not just his decision. He has got to let the board members make these decisions. And you're right, the sooner you can get a fifth member on there, the sooner you can break these tie votes. That's why the state wants, to have uneven numbers on the board.
Right.
For that very reason, because otherwise that's exactly what happens. So do you have a, quote, association attorney that you've worked with in years past?
Well, that's another thing. As soon as he got here, we did have one. And we, honestly, till he came, we never had these kind of conflicts. Like, it was just, we all got along and we worked together, and it was just really no problem. Just once he got here, he started doing all these radical things and not including us. I actually texted him on April 9th and I said, I want to be part of the ARC committee, please. I said, from now on, if because they're approving all these things, the white fence and all this. And I said, I would like to be part of the committee. He goes, well, you're vice president. You want to give that up? I go, no, I don't have to give it up. I'm a homeowner. So anyway, so basically when I called him out on it a couple days ago and I said, I told you previously I wanted to be part of the ARC committee, and so did my neighbor, and you have yet to include me on one decision, including what you're building in your backyard. And he said, you never said that. And I had the text. So when I nailed him the second time, I put it in there and I said, here's the text where I specifically asked to be part of the ARC committee. So the fact that his wife, it's the two of them, like between her being head of the ARC committee, she's approving whatever she sees fit, and he's okaying it. That he literally said that in an email. Well, the ARC committee brings it to me and I approve it or whatever. And I'm like, why are you? I said, why does the board not know about all these things, like the gray house and the white fence? Why do we not know? Because that's what's the point of having an ARC committee? It's up to them to do it. And I'm like, not when it's such an extreme situation. And the same thing with the fencing. I said, you were proposing $18,000 of fence replacements. I walked in my neighbor's fence and don't agree with you, and yet we're not getting to even see what you're proposing gets fixed.
Yeah, no, that definitely is a board decision. That has to be done by a board. That's not something that just the president can do. But I understand what you're saying, and this happens to every association. They'll be plugging along, they'll be fine for years, then they get somebody that comes in. Sometimes it's for the good, sometimes it's for the not so good, and they come in and they start making all these changes, and it just... they're not following the rules, and when they're not, you should, somewhere in your documents, it should talk about the architectural committee, and, sometimes it says, and you have to look at your documents, because some of my associations, it'll say that it has to have a board member on the committee. Other times they say it can't have a board member on the committee. So you just have to look at that, number one. So you may or may not be able to be on the ARC committee, depending on what your documents say. And then, but once it, gets to the point where he's spending money like that, he can't spend that on his own without coming back to the board. That is absolutely a board decision.
Well, now he has to, because me and Mike we're calling him out. We're like, you can't just, and again, we just still want to, at least I did, want to see what he's approving. Like, why is it just up to him? And that's exactly what I said. One person can't decide what it needs to be replaced. It should be the board, not you, just you, And honestly, back to the attorney, we had one. But we never needed it for type stuff like this. He was just, on the, we would use him as needed for estoppels and different things. And as soon as he got in office, he pretty much said, he said, we're not using him anymore. And he's used him one time, I guess for estoppels or something. But we don't have anybody like for something like this, because he basically refuses to even. I have said from the beginning, especially even with the paint colors, I said, we need to have an attorney look at some of these things you're talking about here. and he just won't do it. Like he just ignores me. Pretty much anything I say is pretty much ignored when it comes to anything like this. He just kept doing what he wanted until Mike, also joined the board, and now we have the two of us against the two of them, and then the wife. And he says, oh well, my wife, since it's a tie vote, my wife being no, he didn't say my wife. He goes, head of the art committee will be the tiebreaker. And I said, oh, I don't think so. First of all, she's your wife, and second of all, she's not on the board. So he said, okay, fair enough. But literally, this is what I'm telling you, it's just crazy. So I would personally love to have an attorney, involved in this. And I know my other people that I'm having a Zoom meeting privately tomorrow with some of the homeowners, the ex-president, everybody else that's very upset about all this. And I'm having a private Zoom meeting, and we're going to just talk about, because the meeting he's holding by Zoom, which yet again, he did not run past the board. He just made the choice. And I put that in the last letter. I said, once again, you don't even take the board into consideration when you make a meeting date. You don't take us into consideration for anything. So, it's okay. The date's fine with me, but it was just the principle of the thing. So we're having a meeting tomorrow by Zoom, all of us, and just going to talk about this and see what, if anything we could do. And I said I would love to talk to you. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if you can help. I don't know what you would charge to try to, look over some of this for us. I don't know I know a lot of attorneys, and they say you have to do some pro bono work every year. And I'm a nonprofit. Personally, I could even give you, receipts for nonprofit work. However you wanted to work it out. But, either way, we would still like some rates from you and try to see if you could even help us. But I could just at least send you a few things. To me, looks so black and white, like his boat sticking up over the fence. I mean, that it clearly says, and no boats, nothing over 6 foot tall should be parked in the subdivision, except for maybe a day or so when you're working on it. And it says if it's over that, it needs to be in a garage. I mean, that is black and white to me. I don't see how you could even argue that. The fences, it clearly stated, which I didn't realize this when he started moving all those fences back, that it clearly states moving fences should be changed in the covenants, not approved by the art committee, you and your wife. It says that fencing should be there and not moved unless it's changed in the covenant. So to me, that is so black and white.
Yeah, you're right. And that's do you have a management company that helps you all, or who does all your bookkeeping?
Well, that's my one friend who was the other art committee, the other HOA attorney suggested we get a management company, considering he is doing all this stuff. But we one time discussed it, and a few of us now are not even opposed to it after what he's doing. We're all like, we're just in shock. I mean, we've all been just like, again, he just tosses the entire community aside. Barely, I had to fight with him to even get him let the community vote on changing the paint colors. He didn't even want it. He was like storming around during the meeting going, fine, we'll let the homeowners vote. I'm like, because he assumes, like he's an attorney, that harmonious means you can paint it anything you want, which again, I pointed out in one of the emails I sent him, which I'd love to send you these if you want to see them. But I said, I don't care if you like the gray house or you like the white vinyl fence. I said, but it is definitely not harmonious. Nobody in their right mind could call it harmonious in this community. And so he just said, well, it was, as more people paint their houses, it'll be more, he just has always got some answer and excuse. But the bottom line is that house is, it's just, it's not that the way it just doesn't belong here the way things look right now,
And now the problem is, here's what happens is, just like his boat and now his house, the next person comes along and they basically get to argue that you've waived your enforcement rights as it pertains to those particular things, because the president has done it now and you all haven't taken any action to, correct it. And so everybody else gets to rely on that. You have, basically, quote, waived the enforcement right when it comes to that. So you have to take it seriously because of that, if nothing else.
Well, can we start trying to enforce it now?
Yeah, I mean, you could do it against, you got a couple things you could do. You could enforce it against him if he didn't get the proper approval, but if he did get approval for what he did, and, it'd be difficult to show he didn't get approval, then you have to send out a notice saying, hey, this shouldn't have been approved and nobody else can do it. I mean, you literally have to send a formal notice to all the owners so that they know that you do fully intend on enforcing your restrictions and this shouldn't have been allowed
Yeah, well, his wife approved all these things, so that's what I mean. And the ARC, whoever was on the mysterious ARC committee at that point, I did read all through the covenants last week. I spent a couple hours doing it. I used to work for attorneys a long time ago, but still, I tried to just, I'm pretty logical, and I didn't see anywhere where it said like a board member could not be on an ARC committee. As a matter of fact, our last ARC committee president was on the board, so. Not that matters, because I don't think they were looking at the covenants that close really back then, because everybody got along and it wasn't a big issue. But so I know that was the case before. I'm actually shocked he didn't try to stick her on the board on top of everything else, and that way they'd have another vote. But he did say specifically he didn't do that for that reason, but he still made her head of the ARC committee, and between the two of them, they've changed the entire community. Because she's head of the ARC committee and not running. And I even suggested from now on, anything from the ARC committee goes by the board, and that's why he said, well, what's the point of having an ARC committee? And that's why I said, well, then fine, I want to be on it. And he actually agreed finally, because he can't have a choice at this point. I finally standing up to him because I have some backup, and I had nothing. I tried to stand up before, but he had his little minions on there with him, and that was it. But now that I have someone else who is tired of this, tyrant running this place, we now at least we're locking horns, and he's had to, he's having to do things by the book, because we're all saying, we're not, there's two of us are not putting up with it anymore.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you had a management company, they too would, be kind of like your first line of attack, so that you don't spend a ton of money on attorney fees. They would usually say, I'm sorry, but you can't do that,
Right.
And they would reference the documents, and then if he pushed back and, said something like, well, I'm going to do it, that's when they usually will reach out to the attorney, myself or whoever may be the, quote, association attorney, and say, hey, we've had this come up. Can you give me, an email opinion just saying that this is improper? And then they send it back to the person, knowing, and so now they know, because what we usually do, myself and the other, quote, association attorneys, we say, you're breaching your fiduciary duty if you, as a board member and president, are not following the restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can be sued for that, and an owner can sue, and you won't have insurance coverage, even though you have what we call directors and officers insurance, D&O. They'll decline to provide you any sort of defense because you have intentionally, after your attorney and your management company told you you can't do this, you're doing it anyways.
Wow. See, because I know, because technically the gray house with the white fence, and there's nothing, and I even think that there's something. It was confusing to me, so I can't say this one's black and white. But they moved their fence so close to the road, and I swear in certain parts it says there's supposed to be a 25-foot easement. None of our fences were near the road before until they all started moving them because of him. So now the fences are really close to the road. In that one corner where I live, where this white house or white fence is almost, it says if it blocks views or something, it's supposed to be 25 feet back. And I don't even, because they got approval from the county, and they also got approval from him and his wife. So if we couldn't probably even make him change that at this point.
Yeah, well, if it's in your documents, you can, despite the fact that the county may say it's okay. If you have something specifically in your documents that says it can't be within, 25 feet of the roadway or something, you can.
Okay. Well, that's good.
But if there's nothing in your documents and the county approved it, then you can't. You're right.
Okay. Well, no, it's, again, that's something where somebody like you that's knowledgeable would be able to read that like the right way. I don't know if it just says something about obstructing views, so I don't know if that means all the houses are supposed to keep it in the 25-foot easement, because we never had it before. We never had these fences all moved out on two different roads. They're all moving them out closer to the, they're including their yard, more in behind their fence, where it was never, some of these yards have about, gosh, I'd say 20 feet of extra yard that were outside their fence, and some bigger. The ones on Westlake were really big. He moved his fence back, way back, and that's why he's got a boat, a trampoline. He's got all this other stuff back there because of this moving the fences. And another guy parked an RV. He did the same thing. He's got an RV sitting back there, again, sticking over the top. Now, in full disclosure, I have an RV, and my friend, who was the head of the ARC committee, unfortunately, who passed away, that was on the board used to let me park it behind his house in this part on Westlake because it's really open grass. This whole thing is open grass. But they told me I had to move it, so I do. I just bring it back to my house because clearly in the bylaws it says I'm allowed to have it there while it's being worked on for short periods of time. So I do that when I rent it, and I'll have it cleaned, so I'll bring it back to my house for a little bit or park it at my friend's behind her house for one night. But I don't leave it there all the time. So either way, the point is the other guy has an RV. He moved the fence back. It's also bigger than the 6-foot rule about putting it in a garage. So now he's got his there. I mean, it's just going on and on,
Yep, yeah. So you really, when you talk to the people tomorrow on your Zoom conference, my suggestions are, number one, a management company. I have an excellent management company I can refer that I know does some other associations up in Palm Harbor. It's called Holiday Isles.
Okay.
And they're located in Largo, but they have a bunch of properties all the way up in Palm Harbor. Rachel Dennis is the contact person at Holiday Isles.
Okay.
And she does they do a fabulous job, and they're not extremely expensive, because they're used to handling you say you're a small association, but you're really a middle-sized association.
Okay.
Yeah. So they do a lot of those sizes, and they, have their they do it by the house is how management companies charge. They figure out how many homes you have, and they charge that way.
Okay. How much roughly do they normally charge? I have no idea.
I don't know. It really depends. So I would reach out to Rachel Dennis, like I
Okay.
said, Holiday Isles.
Okay.
And she will be able to, tell you what it would cost. And like I say, Holiday Isles and Rachel have properties up your way.
Sure.
Pretty, familiar with the area and what they charge their other customer, associations up there.
Well, that's exactly what, like I said, the other guy talked to. The first thing he said when he talked to me, because he didn't have a lot of time, but he just said, the first thing I'm suggesting is a management company. So that was like it was the only suggestion I got from him, actually, but that was pretty much it, So yeah, that's well, I will definitely propose that. And we were originally against that when we couldn't even get enough people on the board, so that's why I ended up doing it, because I have a million things going on with my own rescue. I have animal rescue, and I have a job, and I run my own house. I'm single, and I've got all this stuff. So I didn't want to be on the board either, but it was down to the point where we're almost going to have a management company take over. So I did join. So then again, like I said, we plodded along, and everything was good up until all this happened with when he joined it. We all got along, and we didn't do things behind each other's back and approve something like this hideous house over here.
A management company also will help you. You won't have to spend as much on legal fees either, because they'll be able to help you with a lot of these issues. But before I forget, so the number for Holiday Isles, their telephone number.
Okay.
Let me give you that so that you
Let me
have
grab
it.
a pen real quick. Thank you so much for calling. And again, we may need you, so I really appreciate this. But
After you talk to them on Zoom, then you figure out if they want to talk to me. Normally, what I do, just so you know, is that I will give an hour or so or more, whatever it takes. I'll go meet with the board and talk to the board for free.
okay.
Or we do it by Zoom now,
Right.
But I can do it in person as well, whatever anybody's comfortable with. But I always like to talk to them the first time, whether it's an hour or two, and just get an idea of what their legal issues are and give them suggestions, what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. So I do that sort of thing. But then once I start charging, it's $2.25 an hour.
Okay.
And so, if I just talk for 15 minutes, then it's only a small portion of that. But if I do something for 2 hours, then it's, the $4.50 because it's $2.25 times the 2. So it
Right.
if I have some associations that don't have a management company, but I will tell you they spend a lot more in legal dollars than they need to, and I remind them of that all the time. I say, if you had a management company, a lot of these questions would be answered by the management company.
Right. Well, I definitely, I got a pen, so did you
Okay, yeah, so Holiday Isles, Rachel Dennis,
Okay.
And her telephone number is 727 548 9402.
Okay. Well, I will give them.
Oh, you can use my name, no problem at all. They're very familiar with me, and I don't get. And if anybody asks, I don't represent the management company. I don't get kickbacks. I just think that I work with several different management companies. Because I know your size and your issues. I think that management company would be a good fit. Other times I refer people to different management companies because I'm like, oh, no, you need this kind of management. It just depends. But they're
Wow.
very familiar with dealing with communities like yours and with difficult particular board members.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough. My gosh. I mean, you are wonderful. In whatever 23 minutes we've been talking here, you've given me more help than, my other friends. I asked for 3 months just to give me an answer to one or two things. And anyway, so I really, really appreciate you. And I think the board would probably love, well, he wouldn't, but I think the rest of the community would love to have, like you suggest, maybe an hour just talking. And I could prep you too in advance. So a lot of the stuff, so it wouldn't be too crazy. Like you kind of could go in and just say this was not done right or whatever, like almost.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so it would be quick. It wouldn't be, doubt it would be 2 hours. And I think once somebody tells him, pulls him down off his little cloud that the stuff he's doing is wrong, or just tells him even at all, especially an attorney, I think he'll probably leave the board, and I think there'll be like a major party here because.
And that's just it. When he realizes that, number one, he doesn't have insurance coverage for these issues, and that somebody can sue him, him personally, for not following the documents, that's usually gets a wake-up call from the board,
Yeah, that's great. I wasn't even going to have a cocktail today. I might have a little glass of wine just to celebrate talking to you.
Yeah, so have your Zoom conference.
Okay.
You may want to even reach out to Rachel before you have that, so you have some idea of what costs are.
Yes. Our meeting's not till 2, so I'll do that in the morning. Where's your office? Where are you relocated?
Yeah, so my office is right in downtown St. Pete.
Oh, okay.
But I actually have associations all over Hillsborough, all over Pinellas County, all over Manatee County. I have some all the way up in Citrus County and Hernando County. So, yeah, it's one of those, my practice is just all up and down this coast, and this is what I do, association.
Right, that's fabulous. How do you know Roy?
Roy and I are actually in a group together because and I actually use him as part of the association law for HOAs.
Uh-huh.
You have to have, when you are going to do a mediation, like for instance, this is just an example. I have another community that an owner put a fence up in direct violation of their restrictions. Before you can file suit against them, you have to go to what's called the pre-suit mediation, and you actually have to go to mediation.
Okay.
And so anyways, Roy is a mediator, and I have him on my list of mediators for HOAs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he knows I do all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's funny. I reached out to him because I was in such frustration, and I've known him for quite a few years. I'm actually best friends with his ex-wife, but I knew them, of course, when they were still married. So and I've helped him quite a few times too with a few things.
Yeah, which one of his ex-wives? That's what.
Well, Lauren, the one he was married to for 20 years.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
Yeah. So, and that's the last one. Now we were joking the other day where he's staying perpetually engaged. He said this time, I go, good move.
Yeah, I know it. Oh my God, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him a lot though. But so yeah, I do digital marketing. So I did Facebook page for him and stuff when he was, a little more back when he was trying.